Ash and Elena were flying on Elena's salamence. The two of them were finalizing the storyline if, and only if, their friends and family sees them together during the ball. Elena was rather impressed at how ingenious this storyline is. You really need to consider a career in show business, this is genius. Elena said as she rested her head on Ash's lap. I'm glad that those lessons in theater that I forcefully endure weren't useless. Ash replied with a chuckle. He then glanced at her beautiful face with a concerned expression. If we do this, our relationship will be out of the bag, do you really want that? Ash asked in a concerned tone. Elena merely smiled at Ash. I'm ready, Ash, I've been ready for about a year now. Elena answered as she caresses Ash's face. But if you're not ready yet. Ash hurriedly interrupted her at the mention of that. Don't get me wrong, I've been ready since the day I said the words, I love you, to you, but I'm not sure how our friends and our family will react. Ash exclaimed worriedly. Your uncle and Natasha reacted well, even Brock and Gary reaction is quite appropriate, why are you nervous about how my friends and your friends will react? Elena inquired as she raised her eyebrow on Ash. I'm not nervous, I'm worried. Those four reacted the way they did because I threatened them with an aura sphere. What kind of person would react properly if I had an aura sphere at their faces? Ash reasoned with a humorous tone. Point taken, but still, it would be okay. Plus, they couldn't do anything even if they don't approve of us anyway. Elena stated, causing Ash to smile. I know that already loved, if they even try to go between us, it will cause them, friendship and family be damn. Ash said in an indignant tone. Elena smiled seeing that Ash will go through the plan. She was worried as well at how her family would react, especially at how Sarah would react. Sarah never shut up at how perfect and how wonderful Ash was when she went to visit them in their excavation, much to her aggravation. Elena knew that when Sarah discovered her relationship with her dream man, it would be hell. Even Jane had a crush on him, and that is saying something. But Elena can't bring herself to care about that. Ash chose her and that's the only thing that she cared about. She had managed to make Ash fell for her, and that was not an easy task I may add, and as long as Ash found her worthy of his affection, then Ash will be hers and only hers. One thing is for certain, the coming days would be interesting. Scene change. Come on you guys, hurry up. I need to buy a dress. Sarah exclaimed loudly as she glanced at her friends and her family. Relax would you, I'm going to be the one that will pay for your dress so you should take it easy. Adon stated with a smile as he glanced at the blissful Sarah. I know that, that's why I want to get a beautiful and expensive one. Sarah stated with a bright smile causing Adon to look dejected. There goes my bank account. Adon muttered with a sigh as he took his thick WL-let. Don't worry Adon, if your bank account goes to zero, you could ask Ash for cash. Natasha whispered humorously. Like I will stoop that low. Adon whispered as he glanced at Natasha. But come on, have you seen his bank account? There's more zeros there than I could have ever imagined. Natasha exclaimed quietly. I know that, but that money is reserved for his future with Elena. Adon reasoned with a smile. Yeah, Elena's in good hands. Natasha said with a smile. If you two are done talking, we're already here. Henry stated as he pointed at the large mall. Adon stared at the mall with grim expression. Well, it's been nice knowing my bank account. Adon said in a grim tone. Okay everyone, go shop for your dresses and suits and we'll meet in the food court in 2 hours. Henry announced, causing Avery to disperse quickly. Jane, before you leave, I need to tell you something. What is it, you old geezer? Jane asked as she stared coldly at her biological father. Henry sighed sadly at the tone of voice that her eldest daughter used in talking to him. She really hates him. Be careful, your hair may be longer and you may be wearing clothes that conceal your identity, but please, be careful. Henry said in a compassionate tone. Jane on the other hand was least compassionate. What about you worry about yourself and I will worry about myself, like we're used to? Jane said with a sharp tone as she went towards the crew. Henry shook his head slightly in sadness. It seems that Elena was his only daughter that actually respects him now. You do know that you deserved every disrespect that Jane and Sarah had gave you and are giving you, right? Adon stated as he glanced at his longtime companion. I know, I screw up as their father, I don't want you to rub it in. Henry replied in frustration. Trust me when I say this, you don't know half the pain that those three suffered when you left them, when you left Relina. If you asked me, you deserved more pain than you are receiving right now. Adon said as he walked past Henry and was shortly followed by Natasha. Scene change. Why do we always have to be stuck with these girls when they shop? Max shouted as he carried countless bags. Beats me, Gary answered nonchalantly as he conversed with Brock. The shopping bags that he was carrying were on the ground. So Ash stayed behind to fix up some land, huh? Gary whispered to Brock. Yeah, he felt guilty when Team Rocket attacked and destroyed Grandma Wilmot's land, so he stayed behind to help her fix it. Brock stated quietly. Do you think that he stayed behind because he was up for a meeting with her little Elena? Gary commented with a grin. Probably, knowing how faithful Ash is to her, he wouldn't arrive here until tomorrow, after the ball is done. Brock remarked with tears fell down from his eyes. Why can't I get a girl that beautiful? Brock asked quietly so that Gary was the only that could hear him. Maybe it's because when you see a pretty girl, you go gaga instantly. Gary replied snidely. What are you two talking about? Max asked as he glanced at the two boys behind him. The two teens merely looked at Max grimly. You don't want to know, trust us, you don't want to know. Gary and Brock replied grimly. Max looked at them confusedly and was about to inquire more but was interrupted by the opening of the changing room. Finally, you three are done, can we go now? Gary stated as he glanced at the three girls that emerged from the changing room. Not yet, we need to buy some accessories for our dress. May exclaimed happily, causing the three boys to groan. Could you guys just use the accessories that you already have? Max inquired desperately. We can't do that, Max, this is a ball, a formal affair that we're going to, so we need to look presentable. Don stated cheerfully. The three boys groaned at that once again as they follow the four girls as they head to the counter. I should have helped Ash. Brock muttered desperately. Amen to that. Max whispered as they finally let the bags that they were holding down to the counter. Scene change. Let's see, I want this, and this, ow, and this. Sarah trailed off as she picked several dresses and placed them on the cart. This was also being done by the girls of the crew, with the exception of Jane. Why are they like that? Every time they get the chance to go shopping, they go crazy. Jane said as she watched the four girls shop like mad. It's because they spend most of their time in ruins, they want to catch up in the modern world. Neil explained as he glanced at Jane. And I spend most of my time dodging bullets, and looked at me, I don't act like a schoolgirl every time I'm in a mall. Jane stated in annoyance. Speaking of mall, do you already have a dress for the ball tonight? Michael asked as he glanced at his frantic, shopping-crazed girlfriend. I already have one. I'm just going to use the dress I used when I talked to my clients. It saves me the time and the money to buy a new one, Jane said with a shrug. Good to know, that would reduce the bags that we have to carry. Michael said in dread as he glanced at the dresses and the accessories that the girls were trying on. Where is that bloody Justin anyway? He should be here enduring this with us. Michael stated in frustration. I would bet that he's out there flirting with some random girls. Neil said in a disappointed tone. Could I just kill him? I don't like the fact that he always tries to flirt with Elena. Jane stated venomously as she balled her hands into a fist. Ash would probably kill the guy the first time he sees him flirting with her anyway. Jane thought as her mind drifted towards the enigmatic Aura Prince. She, for all of her being, can't figure him out. The first time they meet, he hated her in an instant. The second, the third, and most of the time they meet, she tried to kill him. The last time they meet, he killed her entire crew and almost killed her but was saved by the pleas of her youngest sister. It was still a real shocker to her that her sister was secretly dating, behind their backs, a powerful, handsome, and sexy being, for almost 3 years no less. That brought her to his offer to train her to become an Aura Guardian. Jane shook her head at the thought of that offer. It was still unreal. She spent most of her life poaching Pokémons for profit, hurting people and Pokémons in the process, but now, a man that all living things consider as a god comes and offered her salvation. It shook her down to her very core. It still confused her that he would offer her that kind of choice to someone like her, a cold, heartless person, a chance of redemption. It was unreal. But she was still a bit hesitant to accept that offer even with the urges of Elena, Papa Dan, which happened to be his uncle, and even Natasha. The reason why she was hesitant to accept Ash's is the fact that she thinks that she doesn't deserve salvation for her sins. "Hey Jane, are you okay?" Neil asked as he glanced at his old friend. Jane shook her head and glanced stoically at Neil. "I'm fine, Neil, don't worry about me," Jane said in a passive tone. Neil quickly nodded as she glanced at his workmates. There was absolutely no sense for him to ask any more. Knowing Jane, she wouldn't give an answer. To the shopping girls. "Okay, that all of that things I'll need," Sarah exclaimed happily as she glanced at a beautiful black gown and some accessories that she picked up. "We're done here as well," Michelle and Tanya said in unison as they dropped 20 bags of clothing on top of Neil, which he caught and carried effortlessly. "I'm done too," Karen stated as she dropped her bags on her boyfriend. Michael grunted as he struggled to carry 5 bags that his girlfriend gave him. "What were you buying? Rocks or something?" Michael grunted as he gently dropped the bags to the ground. "Nothing but the essentials, dear," Karen replied with a sweet smile. "That, and you're going to help me pay for that," Karen added, causing Michael to groan. "There goes my wallet." Michael groaned, causing Karen to chuckle lowly. "Sucks to have a girlfriend, huh?" Jane commented snidely. "I agree to that," Neil said with a nod. "Now that little fiasco is done, let's pay for this," Sarah said as she dropped her bags to Neil and approached the counter. As she approached the counter, she was met by a sight that caused her mood to be lifted catastrophically. "Misty, May, Dawn, Brock, Max," Sarah shouted as she stalked off towards the friends of the person that caught her heart. Jane on the other hand has a different reaction. "Oh shit, them again," Jane muttered annoyingly. Scene change. "Misty, May, Dawn, Brock, Max," a familiar voice called out, catching the group's attention. "That voice, it can't be," Misty muttered as the group glanced at the approaching Sarah. "Guys, it's Sarah," Max exclaimed in shock. "It's my beautiful angel," Brock exclaimed skeptically as he glanced at Sarah lecherously. As he said those words, his Krogunk appeared below him, waiting a chance and a reason to strike. "So she's the genius that changed the face of the Pokémon industry, huh?" Gary commented as he glanced at the beautiful black-haired girl. "Hey guys, what are you doing here?" Sarah asked as she glanced at everyone and instantly noticed that Ash was not with them. "Where's Ash?" Sarah added as she noticed the lack of a handsome man with them. But before they could answer, Brock beat them to the punch as he clutched her hands. "Hello my beautiful genius, how my heart longed to be with you and your warm." Before Brock could finish his ridiculous punch line, Krogunk decided to hit right there and then. He quickly hit Brock's gut with a poison jab, causing Brock to fell down to the ground. "The pain, the searing pain," Brock muttered as he clutched his stomach. "You embarrass me sometimes," Krogunk muttered as he dragged Brock away, oblivious of the stare that was coming from the spectators. "That was quite familiar," Karen commented as she gazed at the stranger and his Krogunk. Trust me, spend some time with them for a day and you'll figure out that this happens often. Sarah said as she glanced at her friend before glancing at Ash's friends. So where's Ashy? Sarah asked again as she glanced at them once again. Oh, you mean Ash? He stayed behind in the last place we visited to help in some repairs. Misty answered as she helped Brock up his feet. Sarah's expression momentarily faltered at hearing that. How unlucky could she be? But her expression automatically changed back into a happy one. Will he be participating in the ball tonight? Sarah asked with a tone of hope. The people that knew Sarah was startled at hearing that kind of voice that she just used. She must really be attracted to that guy to make her sound that desperate. That guy must be a saint or something relatively close. The crew thought in unison. Jane has different thoughts. We're a bit late to capture his heart, Sarah, he's already taken. Jane thought begrudgingly. Ash's friends on the other hand were oblivious of Sarah's feelings for Ash. Ash is helping an old lady fix her land, that's why he's not here. Gary stated as he glanced at the famous person in front of her. Sarah glanced at the person that said those words and was a bit startled to see a brown-haired boy. Who are you and what's your relation with Ash? Sarah asked as she looked at Gary curiously. Gary raised an eyebrow at that question as he glanced at Sarah, but nevertheless he extended his hand. Gary Oak, I'm Ash's childhood friend. Gary introduced himself. Sarah smiled sweetly as she took his hand and shook it gleefully. So you're that rookie professor, huh? Interesting. Sarah said as she took her hand. So when will Ash arrive? I want to talk to him. Ash would probably arrive tonight. The damage on Grandma Wilmot's land was very severe. Misty stated as she glanced at the people that were behind Sarah. That's good, Sarah exclaimed happily until she noticed that the eyes of Ash's friends were on her friends. Before I forget, Misty, May, Dawn, Brock, Max, Gary, this is my friends Karen, Neil, Michael, Michelle, Tanya. Sarah said introducing her friends. The group glanced at each other before offering their hands in respect. Jane wisely stepped back but was instantly noticed by, guess who, Brock. Brock instantly noticed the beautiful silver-haired girl and instantly goes gaga at her. Hello miss, may I have the name of this fair lady? Brock said smoothly as he appeared in front of Jane. It was safe to say that this will not end well for him. Scene change. That was a bit harsh, don't you think? Karen inquired as she glanced at Jane before glancing at the unmoving body of one of their new acquaintance. That idiot was lucky that we're on public because if not I would have broken every bone in his body. Jane spat annoyingly as she walked ahead of the large group. Karen sighed as she glanced at the group that joined them. Sorry for what happened early on, she's just naturally violent. Karen said, apologizing at Jane's action. The groups seemed to not mind what Jane did because they merely just chuckled at the beating that Brock took in the hands of Jane, confusing Karen and her friends. Trust me when I say this, he suffered a more brutal beating during our past journeys, compared to what that girl gave him. Misty said with a chuckle. Compared to the beating that Ash gave to him all those years ago, that was actually a massaged. May added with a low laugh. But now that I think about it, that beating that girl and Ash gave Brock was quite similar. Max stated quietly as he glanced at the silver-haired woman. So tell us, who is she and why is she so violent and so distant? Gary asked, causing Sarah to let out a long sigh. She's my older sister Jane, don't try to talk to her, she doesn't like people that much. Sarah said, causing the group to be surprised. You have a sister. The group exclaimed loudly, causing the crew, I would refer to Ash's friends as group while I refer to Alina's friend as crew, to chuckle. Sarah on the other hand merely sighed once again. Yes, I have a sister, two to be precise. Jane is the eldest, I'm the middle, and the youngest is Elena. Sarah explained, causing Gary to stumble in his steps and Brock to wake up due to shock. Hey rookie, you okay there? Sarah asked as she glanced at Gary curiously. I'm fine, don't worry about me, Gary said, but his mind was racing. If I remember correctly, Sarah's full name is Sarah Koshi and Alina's full name is also, oh my mew, they're related. Gary thought, surprised at the new information that they got. Gary can't believe it. Ash was dating the sister of one of the most gifted trainers in history, and it seems that Sarah has a crush on him as well. The two groups conversed as they head towards the food court. Brock, who had finally woke up from the beating that Jane gave him, was having a conversation with Neil. It seems that they have the same job in their respective group and were trading tips. May and Dawn were talking to Michelle and Tanya as they talk about fashion, styles and other stuffs that girls can't shut up about. To the girls that reads my stories, no offense and please don't sue me for that. Misty and Karen were in a deep conversation about water types. It seems that Karen was an expert in water Pokémon archaeology and Misty was quite interested on what knowledge that she has in regards of the history of water types. Michael and Max on the other hand were talking about the advantages and disadvantages of having a female in their lives. Max complained about having a sister while Michelle told Max about the magic of having a girlfriend. Sarah on the other hand was busy asking Gary about Ash while Gary reluctantly answered her eager questions, with Jane secretly listening to their question and answer conversation. It seems that Ash's friend and Alina's friends were getting along just fine, until a crash caught their attention and a familiar body skid in their direction. Ash's friends looked at the body confusedly while Alina's friend looked at the person in disappointed. What trouble did you get yourself into again, Justin? Neil asked as he picked his workmate up his feet. Well, you see, it's a funny story. Justin said as he rubbed his sore arm. Hey bro, there's the punk. A person shouted as he held a pipe in his hands. Don't let him escape. I'll teach him a lesson on flirting with someone else's girl. A rough voice shouted as 5 boys approached Justin's location. All of them were holding baseball bats and lead pipe. Arceus, you flirt with another man's girlfriend again, haven't you? Karen exclaimed, causing Justin to shrug his shoulder, not wanting to apologize for his actions. The group sighed as Neil and Michael dropped all the luggage that they were carrying and prepared themselves to fight Justin's battle, again for what seems like 1,000 times. You are going to polish the whole jet after this. Neil said as he cracked his knuckles. That and you're going to clean the tablets and artifacts for a whole month. Michael stated as he wore a pair of fingerless gloves. Would ever just fend them off for me? Justin exclaimed as he hid behind Brock. Pathetic, both Neil and Michael stated as they charged at the 6 people that was about to rip Justin to pieces. Justin was lucky that the 2 of them actually knows how to fight, unlike him who only knew how to flirt and how to run. Scene change. Next time that you tried to flirt with someone's girlfriend, please make sure that they don't have lead pipes with them. Michael stated as Karen turned his busted open head. Learn how to fight your own battles, will you? Karen growled as she tended to her beloved boyfriend and his brother. You're lucky that my brother could sustain pain in an inhuman way, but Michael bruise easy. I said I was sorry. Justin said as he sipped the cola that he was drinking. Does this happen a lot? Dawn asked as she glanced at the 4 quarreling people in front of her. Trust us, you have no idea. Michelle and Tanya said in unison. Justin is a womanizer of our group and tends to flirt with any pretty girl he sees, just as long they have skirts and breast. That attribute of him really annoys us and often gets him into trouble. He doesn't know how to fight, so he depends on Neil and Michael to get him out of trouble because they actually know how to fight, thanks to Adan's fighting camp. In short, the only reason why he is here is because he's the apprentice of the owner of the company, Sarah's father. Michelle and Tanya concluded at the same time. Hey, it's not my fault that the girls love me. Justin said arrogantly. That earned him a strong kick in the head, causing him to fall down face first to the ground. Whoever agree with him is a retard. A familiar voice said as he lifted Justin with one of hand and effortlessly threw him out of the way. Papa Dan, what are you doing here? Jane and Sarah asked in unison. The group attention was instantly diverted to the red-haired man, a silver-haired man and a brown-haired woman that appeared out of nowhere. Brock and Gary instantly recognized the 2 out of 3. Well, I heard that the idiot there, Adon pointing at Justin, caused a commotion causing the 2 of you, he was pointing now at both Michael and Neil, to fight his battle once again, which caused you 2 to be rushed here in the mall's clinic. Adon finished as he glanced at his 2 pupils. Next time, let the guy get toughen up a bit. Adon added as he helped tend the injury of the 2. You 2 are lucky that those gangs have been terrorizing this mall, or else you 2 would be in jail right now. Natasha commented as she glanced at her 2 workmates. We're just lucky that Adon drove us to the ground when he thought us wrestling, or else we'll be in a much more bad shape that we are in right now. Michael commented as he rubbed his bandaged arm. Neil nodded in agreement as his sister bandaged his left leg. Sarah, Jane, were you 2 hurt? Henry asked worriedly as he glanced at his 2 daughters. If those 6 even approached us, they would probably be in a grave by now, Henry. Sarah replied in a bored tone. They're just a bunch of brats, so you shouldn't really be worried about us, old geezer. Jane replied disrespectfully. Would you guys talk to your dad respectively? We have guests in front of us, you know. Michelle commented, causing the attention to be diverted towards the group. Hello there, the group said in unison as the attention was diverted towards them. Adon suddenly smiled at the sight of Brock and Gary. Brock, Gary, it's nice to see you 2 again. Adon greeted with a smile. That caused the group to look at Adon funny. Does he know this kids? It seems that he does know them, because the 2 replied back positively. Hey Adon, it's funny to see you here, Brock said as he greeted Adon with a nod. Yeah, both of you 2 as well, small world. Adon said as he patted both Gary and Brock on the back. Hey Papa Dan, you know the 2? Sarah asked as she glanced at her surrogate father. The groups as well were curious. Adon interact with people he doesn't know. Absolutely, Gary's an old friend of my nephew and Brock travels with him. Adon exclaimed with a small smile until he noticed that his nephew wasn't with them. Speaking of which, where is he? Adon asked as he glanced around. The crew raised an eyebrow at that. How lucky are they to meet up with the traveling group of Adon's nephew? You mean Ash? He stayed behind to help Grandma Wilma with her land. Brock answered, causing Natasha to chuckle lightly. What a coincidence. Natasha said with a laugh, causing Adon nod. Yup, what a coincidence, Adon said with a laugh as he glanced at his crew before glancing at Ash's traveling companions. So you 4 kids travel with my nephew, huh? Adon inquired while the group merely nodded in confirmation. I see, come on then, let's go to the dining hall, we could talk better there. Scene change. So this is Sun Lake Town, huh? I wouldn't mind spending some time here, this place is magnificent. Ash commented as he glanced at the lake. The couple together with Pikachu and Koyuki was having a walk beside the large lake. I know what you mean, this place also has some archaeological value. Elena commented as she gazed at the lake with a smile. Let me guess, there's an underwater ruin below this place. Ash said as he followed Elena's eyes. Actually no, this place is said to be the first land that Arceus first made in Sinnoh. Elena commented as she glanced at the lake. Interesting, Ash exclaimed as his gaze went towards a fancy-looking hotel. Come on Elena, let's rent a hotel room. Ash stated as he glanced at her with a smile. Yes let's, the 2 of us needs a shower anyway. Elena said as she caresses his muscular body. I want to see this once again. Elena whispered seductively, causing Ash to blush furiously. Scene change. Let me get this straight, Sarah said as she swallowed the steak that she was chewing. Ash is the son of your sister and your best friend Alexander Ketchum, right? Yup, can't you see the family resemblance? Adon asked with a laugh. Now that you mention, no, Sarah stated deadpan as she gazed in a calculative manner at Adon. Why didn't you introduce me to him or to your sister when we were younger? I would have preferred knowing him earlier. Sarah asked with a sharp tone. Let's just say that me and my sister never see eye to eye since 20 years ago. Adon answered with a disappointed tone. That and he can't do that even if he wanted to, Sarah. Natasha exclaimed with a chuckle. Adon and Delia had been in a long-time quarrel for what seems like 20 years now. They can't even stay in the same room together without one of them trying to cripple each other. The group glanced at Adon instantly. Ash's friends still couldn't believe at what they were hearing from Ash's uncle, and the crew still can't believe that Adon was talking about his family for the first time. But the thing they can't believe was the fact that there was animosity in Adon's family, especially that, for Ash's friends, Mrs. Ketchum was the nicest person they met. As for the crew, Adon was the most considerate person that they ever knew. How could you be in a quarrel with Ms. Ketchum? She's the nicest person I had ever met. Max inquired as he glanced at Ash's nephew. Adon merely chuckled bitterly at that question as he read at Henry. I still blame you for that. Adon said in sullen, stoic tone. The group and the crew instantly looked at Henry. His expression could only be described by one word: regret, utter regret. Don't remind me, my jaw still ache at that kick you gave me all those years ago. Henry stated as he rubbed his jaw. A tension quickly developed as Adon stared at Henry with absolute venom, and as Henry gripped the staff that was by his side tightly, it seems that the two was about to fight. So you guys were friends with Mrs. Ketchum and Ash's father? Don asked, wanting to break the tension that was forming around the table. It seems to work as Adon's attention was once again diverted to Ash's friends as he smiled at them. Yes, we were. Ash's father was my best friend and Delia is the best friend of Natasha here. Adon explained with a bright smile. Those were the days, huh, Adon? Natasha exclaimed as he reminisced the time she spent with the old group. Yeah, traveling around the regions with us six, those were the best days of my life. Adon stated with a blissful tone. We were pretty wild back then, if I remember correctly. Henry said with a laugh while Adon and Natasha merely nodded at that statement. Yeah, I still remember how I and Alex used to bail your ass in those tight spots that you get yourselves into and how Cyrus paid for the damage that we made. Adon said with a laugh. You won't let me live that down, won't you? Henry grumbled annoyingly. Not in this lifetime, Bob. Adon stated with a prideful smirk. The group smiled at the three adults as they reminisced their youth. It would have been nice to know them when they were young. As the two groups and the three adults conversed with each other as they dined together. The adults and the children traded stories as they spent time with their new friends. It was fitting because a storm of emotions is about to come and it would hit the two parties directly into the core of their hearts and beliefs. Scene changed. Ash glanced at the bright moon with a small smile. Night has come fast for his liking. Ash shook his head as he adjusted his suit. It's now or never and he would prefer now. Are you nervous, father? Koyuki asked as she glanced at her father. Ash shook his head as he patted her head. I'm not nervous, dear. I'm going to take Elena to this ball, and both of us will dance all night. If my friends or Elena's friends sees us together, then we will go with the storyline that the two of us made, and if they made the one mistake and go between us, then I will kill them. Ash said in a straight face. Koyuki nodded as she walked towards the room that Elena was changing. As Koyuki left, Pikachu jumped on Ash's shoulder. Ready for your big night, partner? Pikachu asked with a grin on his face. Ash chuckled at that question as he glanced at his longtime partner. You made it sound like I'm about to marry Elena, and trust me, I plan to that in 2 years' time. Ash said in a chuckle. I know that. I'm talking about the ball tonight and the chance of our friends and her friends seeing the two of you. Pikachu asked he as he glanced outside. Like I told Elena, I've been ready since the day I said, I love you, to her, Ash stated as he heard the door being opened. Ash looked at the opening door and can't help but smile at the sight that he saw. It was Elena with her evening gown, looking more beautiful than ever. The evening gown that Elena wore was simple yet elegant. The gown was pure white and backless and sleeveless. It was like a silhouette of a sheath dress, was made by fine and luxurious fabric, and was showered by glistening glitters. The dress perfectly fits Elena like a glove, because the gown showed off and emphasized her beautiful and sexy figure. The gown as well shows off her bare shoulders and slender arms, and in a white, soft fabric was the only thing covering her bare, smooth back. Elena was also wearing her 4 favorite jewelries that Ash gave her: the crystal lotus, the angel-winged necklace, the moon-shaped ring, and the family heirloom that she treasures so much. All in all, she looks like a goddess. Ash smiled as he approached her lover, while Elena merely smiled as he approaches. You always look beautiful, but now, you plainly look unbelievable, Ash said as he caressed her cheeks all the way to her shoulder. Elena felt a delighting shiver run down her spine as Ash used his hands to caress her shoulders and her face. It was like Ash was tracing every bit of her, including her soul. You look quite remarkable as well, Ash, Elena said as she gazed at Ash from top to bottom. He was wearing a formal, pure black suit. The suit that he was wearing was usually the suit that violinists wore during performance, but it was designed to resemble the suits that was usually worn by blue bloods and royalty. In a good way, it fits Ash perfectly. Thank you, but I need to look good, especially that I'll be accompanying a goddess in this ball, Ash said as he offered his hand to her. Elena smiled as she took Ash's hand and intertwined it with hers. Shall we? Elena said with a smile. We shall, Ash said as they head towards the venue of the ball. Scene changed. You guys met WHO. Professor Oak yelled as he glanced at the male members of the group. All of them were wearing fancy suits as they recoiled at the furious Professor Oak. He never yelled at them before, and this was the first time he raised his voice to them. Gary decided to answer his Graham's question. We met Adon and his crew and they are going to pick us up for the ball tonight. I don't see what's wrong with that, Gary stated, causing Professor to be red in anger. Gary, it's nice for you and Ash to see Adon again, but for Adon's crew to pick us up, are you out of your mind? Professor Oak inquired with a furious tone. Before any of them could reply, Professor Oak continued his rant. Do any of you have any idea the animosity between Delia and her brother, the history between her and Henry? Do you guys even stop to think about that when any of you accept their offer? Professor Oak asked, and he glanced sharply at the young men in front of him. Yes, we did, and we thought it was time for them to bury the hatchet, Brock answered in a serious tone as he looked at Professor Oak right in the eye. I've had first-hand experience at how a broken family feels like. This may not be similar to my case, but they need to patch things up, for Ash's sake, Brock exclaimed in a serious tone. Professor Oak wasn't the least stumbled at that as he grabbed Brock on the collar and pulled him up roughly. You weren't listening to me, Brock. Delia and Adon doesn't like each other. It's been like that since 20 years ago, Professor Oak stated in a rough tone. You mean because the incident 20 years ago? Yeah, I know, Brock whispered, causing Samuel Oak to drop Brock due to shock. It was lucky that he did drop Brock because at that moment, the girls exited the hotel. Hey Samuel, are you okay? Delia asked, her red gown swaying to the ground. Professor Oak glanced at Delia before shaking his head. Nothing's wrong, Delia. I'm just a bit startled, Professor Oak said as he approached the 3 boys in front of him. If things go out of hand, it's going to be in your heads. The 3 of them nodded as Max glanced at the 2 elder boys. You two know something that I don't, and I want to know what it is, Max said in an impatient tone. Unfortunately for him, Brock and Gary would have none of that. Sorry Max, but no can do, Brock stated in a conventional tone. You wouldn't understand even if we tell you, Max, Gary added, further aggravating Max. I'm not a little kid anymore, Max stated in an indignant tone. Compared to the secret that we know, then you're just kid. Brock stated, causing Max to glare at him. As the three of them conversed, the ladies and Professor Oak wait anxiously for their ride to the ball. Ash Ketchum was quite excited for she will see her son again, while the three were just excited at the prospect of having to dance with Ash. 10 minutes pass and a black limousine stopped in front of them. The group smiled as Delia merely gazed at the symbol of the limousine, trying to remember where and when did she see it before. Her eyes widened as the memory hit her. It can't be. It can't be. Delia thought in shocked. Hello sister, it's been a while. Adon said as he emerged from the limo. Delia automatically glared at the sight of her brother. What are you doing here? Delia asked in a snarled. Professor Oak sighed. He expected this. While the group glanced at the two siblings, Adon did say that he and Ms. Ketchum had some animosity, but they didn't know that the animosity was this intense. Adon ignored her as he glanced at the kids and Professor Oak. Samuel, kids, in the limo now. I need to talk to my sister a bit. Sarah and the rest are in the ballroom and the ball won't start until 8. Adon said as he motioned for the group to go inside the limo. The group nodded as they made their way into the limo, knowing full well that they don't have any business outside. The only person who didn't enter was Professor Oak, who was busy glancing at the two siblings. Adon, seeing that the group was inside the limo, slammed it shut. We hadn't seen each other for more than 10 years and the only thing you could say to me is, what are you doing here? Come on Deli, you're better than that. Adon said with a mocking tone. Delia's eyes darkened as she approached her brother threateningly. How dare you tell my son about that incident 20 years? Delia growled as she slapped Adon hard across the face. Adon's didn't even flinch as he felt the sting that net across his face. Adon rubbed his cheek that his sister slapped as he looked at her right in the eye, further aggravating her. Why did you tell him about that incident? I tried my best to hide that incident from him and you told him just like that, like it was nothing. Do you know how painful that incident is for me? Do you how it hurts knowing that I'm the reason that Alexander is dead? Do you even comprehend the pain of having Ash, my own son, not respecting me anymore? Do you Delia ranted in outraged. Are you done? Adon asked as he stared at her sister passively. Seeing that Delia wouldn't say anything more, he engulfed her in an embrace, shocking both Delia and Samuel in the process. I can't answer that because I don't have an offspring, but I'll ask you this. Do you know the pain I suffered when you deprived me the privilege of being a part of your life, of Ash's life? Adon asked as he let go off the embrace and before looking at her right in the eye. Don't ask me about pain nor complain to me about pain because I had to live 10 years of my life knowing that fact that I didn't fulfill the promise I made to Alexander, the promise that I would be there for you and for Ash because you deprived me of that. Adon said in a harsh tone as he made some distance from his sister and approached the limo. Let's go to the ball sister. I know that you want to see Henry again, and Henry is quite anxious to see you again. Adon stated in a knowing tone.